20 years ago since I started working in those labs. So what we have to ask is, why are the public health officials around the world recommending masks for people who are already afraid and elderly, where they might actually fall, and if you fall and you're elderly, you might break your hip and you will die very quickly. So on any level, morally, ethically, from the research, we should not be wearing masks. So as you know, if there was no need for a first wave, the virus isn't killing people. If we didn't have the media and political and regulatory hype, and there are people who are going to make a lot of money out of this, then we wouldn't have known that SARS-CoV-2 was the virus that existed. So then you have to say, what are they doing? And we have to say as well, there is no basis, no scientific basis, and I'm happy to be challenged. I'm happy to stake my reputation. And there's a hashtag debate Dolores. So I'm very happy to debate Nicholas Sturgeon. And Jean Friedman, your minister, and all of the scientists. And if I'm wrong, I will admit it. But I'm actually happy to state my reputation. So what they're doing is actually trying to change our habits. And if we look into our hearts, our face and our smiles are actually the things that we communicate, to each other. 90% of communication is non-verbal. And what they are doing is, your face is your heart, it's your soul, it's your spirit. And it's actually, for children, what they're trying to do is for children to be in a world where they're missing the smiles of their families and their neighbors. And so what I'm saying is that what you can do in your own lives as one person, as one parent, as one grandparent, as one aunt and uncle, and in your families and communities as one person, say no to the masks. No equals freedom. So no equals freedom. No equals freedom. No equals freedom. So other things that you can say no to. So I don't want to jinx it, but I came in from Dublin this morning and I went through Dublin Airport and smiled at everyone. No one said anything. Went through customs, smiled. They were really nice to me on Aer Lingus, right? I was probably one of 3 people in the airport that wasn't wearing a mask. But they did not say anything to me. And if they did say something to me, of course I would be kind and polite, but I would say to them that the values that I hold dear are truth and freedom, and the truth of this is you're harming your health, you're reducing your immune system, there's no need to wear a mask. I choose freedom. So no masks, no freedom. Freedom! 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 So some more no's that you can do is no to distancing. Distancing is disconnecting. So say no to distancing. No is freedom. No to health immunization passports. No equals freedom. No passports. I will leave my number with the organizer, and if anyone for their job is forced to fill in one of those health immunity passports, say no, and I will come over and be a witness for you guys for free. So there's no need for this, but what are they actually doing? The practical things. So when we say, what does freedom look like? When you think they're, preventing you for social distancing, wearing masks in your life, what does freedom look like? So freedom looks like hugging your grandparents, hugging your children, visiting them in the care homes, going to weddings with as many people as you want. In Ireland and in Scotland, we have beautiful traditions of funerals where everybody comes home and the elderly look forward to their funeral because they know it will be a family gathering. And I think it's actually tragic that the elderly in the care homes, so I suppose we should be getting the message to the elderly in the care homes today, is that they should have their family around them. They should not die alone. They shouldn't die alone, you know, because they actually fought. The people who are dying now, they lived through the World War I and World War II. And they made huge sacrifices, you know, to go across to Germany and to Europe to defend our freedoms. And I think multiple failures have happened, but in the education system, we have to take a good hard look at that, because they are not teaching the generation that are coming up about the importance of freedom of speech. And I think it was always said, if you want to know, you know who's in power, see who's censoring, right? So we've all felt censorship. So I think all of us, it's very hard, because even the teenagers in my daughter's generation, they actually associate freedom of speech with hate speech. So these guys have done a great job in actually manipulating, you know? It's very Orwellian what's going on. So what we have to do, as we know, is freedom of speech, but just I think it's tragic that the elderly in the care homes now are in rooms on their own, and it's happening today. So I think it's hard for us to comprehend if this is not necessary. Why would the politicians be doing it? Why would the nurses and doctors? Because in Ireland there's a very brave doctor, just as you have here, Dr. De Bruin. And Dr. De Bruin is speaking out, and he resigned his position. He was on one of the medical councils, and he resigned for the exact same reason, that they were not giving treatments. And these do not resuscitate orders are shocking. And they go against all the values that we hold dear, that people should be given proper medical treatment irrespective of their age. And I've said in other speeches, I think the game changer will be, and when they look back in 100 years, will be hydroxychloroquine. And I'm a believer in not only truth and freedom, but the free market. So what I would be saying to you, something practical to do, is maybe to find doctors, because hydroxychloroquine in Ireland and all over the world is still prescribed for arthritis and lupus. It's one of the safest medicines in the last 50 years. It's an essential medicine. The World Health Organization calls it an essential medicine of the world, which means that it can't run out, because it's so important, and it has been used against malaria, autoimmune diseases and viruses for over 60 years. It's approved by the FDA. It was never in short supply. The adverse events were non-existent, about 5 in 100,000, and it saved, in all of the studies, as a prevention and early treatment, it saved everyone. So really, we don't need any of these social measures, because we have a treatment. And I would just say to the pharmaceutical industry, the kind of message that they don't want to get, because 70% of pharmaceutical industry profits are from vaccines. And one of the CEOs of a vaccine company 20 years ago, when the clinical trials were failing, and I was thinking at the time, no wonder they're failing, because all of the reagents they're using to do the research are not actually specific with what they're supposed to be. So there's a lot of junk science. But he said, why are we doing research, developing drugs for diseases people have? Why don't we give them something for diseases, like chronic diseases, that we have treatments for? So they started building their market. And if any of you have looked, some of the highest adverse events associated with vaccines that have metals in them like titanium, cobalt, steel, aluminium, and mercury for 20 years. So mercury is one of the top 10 most toxic ingredients in the world, up there with uranium and asbestos. Babies don't really develop any immune system until 9 months, if not until 3 years. And in some countries like Ireland, they are injecting a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease on day 1. And most vaccines don't last more than 8 years. And they contain aluminium, which means that the side effects of that are often the babies have a hard time actually getting rid of the aluminium from their body, so that they are crying when they're with their mother on day 1, and they are upset and they have headaches and they're suffering adverse events, so that the natural bonding between the baby and the mother. So there should be no injection of vaccines for babies, and they should be safety tested. So nearly at the end. So just to say that the other thing that you have to see with the government and with the World Health Organization, so I'm of course a believer as well in democracy and accountability. So some of the things, that what we've done is all of the governments and the medical organizations are saying the World Health Organization are telling this, right? They are not elected and they're not accountable. And also every second week they have a different thing. So the World Health Organization and Fauci said no masks when coronaviruses were at the peak circulation. And then when the summertime is there and there's no death, we have masks. So what you have to do is not only are they exaggerating the fear, but they're actually creating confusion. So confusion reigns when there are lies present, right? Simple truth comes from the heart, and we know it can be verified. So when you see complicated lies and mistruths and the research can't be validated, this is not science. This is not the way to govern. This is not accountable. So what I will be saying is we need to bring back democracy to our local nations and fight for freedom. So just to finish up then, what can you do when you go home? Is first of all, maybe try and in your heart, when you see someone with a mask, especially an elderly person, rather than feeling challenged about it, try and have love and kindness and respect in your heart. Because the agenda of the governments and multiple governments is to create division, as you saw they've done it very well, so division by religion, division by color, division by political orientation, division by globalism, division by the EU. And that is what the ultimate goal, or some of the things that we are hearing now, is that they want to have a lockdown in London on the 21st of September in order to prevent further rising in rallies and to prevent our free speech and freedom of assembly. The other thing that they're talking about, and I'm just saying it now so that if you see it coming, that this is part potentially of the agenda, is COVID-20 and COVID-21. Or maybe they might say botulism or anthrax. So why it's important that you understand and not be afraid of this is that our beautiful immune system, if you are well nourished, can actually fight off most of these bacteria, and viruses, and if your doctor gives you proper treatment, you will be able to survive. So there could be COVID-20, COVID-21, there could be botulism, and the other thing they may do is actually contaminate hydroxychloroquine. So it's important that you know that. And then for the vaccines, if the children or adults are getting them, the first one could just be saline with very little in them. And then they'll say, you see, there's no problem. And then it could be that the second or third vaccine is contaminated. So what we're asking for, but we don't have any funding for it, we're trying to figure out how we can do it, is we need to have a collection of countries that we can, before anybody injects anything in your children or in the elderly, that every 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 randomly the vaccines are taken and analysed. And no one should accept that someone comes along with the vaccine that's not safety tested and that you don't get the full informed consent. So just my message is that what people are saying is each on their own. You are only maybe in your families or communities 1 in 100, 1 in 50. So I had the idea this morning that maybe when you come to this rally or the next one, that you could set up a little table for each of your shires, you know, or counties. And then if you're the only one in your little shire, you could sign your name and say, I'd like to be connected. And that on a positive note, that you are the leaders, right? You are here. And I won't go into it today, but there will be a more beautiful world. It might take us 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. But we will have a world where our children are educated to be the best that they can be. That they will be critical thinkers, and they will be saying, challenge me, debate me, not just try and censor people and clamp down on freedom of speech. We should have it that children are encouraged to be innovators and create businesses and be independent of the state, and also be told why they should be independent of the state, because what we're watching is history in the making. This is whatever the powers that be, going from free democratic societies in the year 2000 to trying to have tyranny, lock people in their homes for no reasons, wear masks, social distance, don't hug your children and your neighbours, don't hug your friends, don't hold hands of your elderly when they're dying, do not decide who they want to decide how many people can come to your house to have a party, whether you can sit on a park bench, whether you can attend the funeral of a loved one, whether you can actually celebrate the joys of life, such as and religious ceremonies and singing and choiring and volunteering like in Scouts. So I think we're watching history in the making, and what we have to say is in the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years, people will look back on 2020 as not being the tipping point of fear, but to be the tipping point of a new world, a world for truth and freedom of speech. Thank you very much.